Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Last week we were working on the, well, we were working on a bunch of stuff, but we finished off the video with the under dash panels. And I've yet to pull those off. I need to get those taken into the powder coater, but I have some other panels I want to take in at the same time. One of those pieces that I'm waiting for is from Dan. He's sending a part along with our month's supply of turn signal switches for customers. And so I want to make sure that I get as much stuff to the powder coater all at once. However, we have moved on to heat and sound mat in the car. So coming right back and we'll take a look at that. So heat and sound mat, what do we use? I get that question all the time. You can use whatever you want. We use a product called Fat Mat. And we go with their least expensive, most economical heat and sound mat. A single layer of the 50 mil, which is the thickness of the material we use, is more than enough to keep any engine heat, and I don't care what engine you have, out of the foot boxes. And that's primarily the thing that you're worried about, is the heat that comes in, because quite honestly, the headers are right here. And depending on which engine you have, they could be closer or farther away from the corner of the foot box. So even with the big Coyote in here, which is, it's only a 300 and some odd displacement engine, it's a big engine because of the dual overhead cams. And so it takes a lot of room in there. And so the headers are closer to the foot boxes, especially on the driver's side, with a Coyote. And we've never found an issue with just running a single layer on the inside of the foot boxes of the 50 mil product. Now, any 50 mil product will do. I know there's products on Amazon and on eBay that you can get from, some of these offshore choices. And I've heard no complaints from any of the people that use those products either. I just like the consistency we seem to get with the product from Fat Mat. Now, this time, I always let the customer choose which one they want. You can get this stuff either with the logo printed on it or not. The customer here chose without the logo. There's no difference in price. The only difference is it doesn't have the Fat Mat logo on it like every foot of the product. It all gets covered up anyway. Now, I have seen in the past where if you buy this stuff on Amazon, you can buy Fat Mat on Amazon rather than directly through them. You can get free shipping if you've got Prime. And sometimes there is a discounted rate for the product that has the logo on it. But it's not all the time. It's inconsistent. So, buyer beware, do your own investigation, your own shopping, and you can figure out which products you want to use. Mrs. IE427 a lot of the time helps me. She started the heat and sound mat. She's probably going to be out in the shop tonight again. And what we do is we set her up a little workstation. So she's got a table to cut everything on. She's got, measuring tools. She's got straight edges. She's got knives, and she's got rollers. Now, with the kit that you get from Fat Mat, it comes with a roller. That's a roller we got in a previous kit from them. This kit came with a wooden roller. It's kind of It's kind of a piece of shit. So we're just using one of the rollers they gave us previously. And they give you one of these break-off blades that you can snap off the blade once it gets dull. Now, because we are in the construction industry, always end up with packages of single-edge razor blades because we use those a lot for cleaning glass. We use them a lot for cleaning solid surface countertops after installs and stuff like that. So we actually have some single-edge razors, and then we use that for like the primary cutting of the product. So when we're cutting the product on the table here, we'll run our straight edge and then cut it with a single-edge razor. But then when you have to cut around something, so let's say on the inside of the cockpit here, you need to cut around these tabs for the seat belts. Well, one of those snap-off knives works really good for that because they're nice and thin. They give you a handle to kind of, you know, hold at the end so you can reach in and cut the product off, and then you can go in there with your hand and pick off whatever that you just cut. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of tips when you're running this stuff. Now, this customer did a lot of the foot boxes himself. He did the foot boxes, he did the cockpit aluminum by himself. I would have run the rivets differently, and I've pointed this out to you guys in the past. I choose to run the rivets in from like the rear wheel wells in towards the cockpit so that the pretty side of the rivet faces out. So if you look here, we have what is this? The ugly side of the rivet, where the pull side of the rivet is on the inside of the car. The owner of this car built this car up to the point that we got it with his kids. They want to retain the memories that they have putting the panels in, and I get it. Had they to do it all over again, they may have chosen to run the rivets in the other way. They didn't know any better, and that's okay. Structurally, there's no difference. It's just a matter of how you're gonna put the stuff in so it looks nicer later on. So when you're dealing with the pull side of the rivet, that is the smooth side of the rivet here on the inside of the cockpit, the product lays down really nice. So it'll go right over that, and all you see is a small dimple in the product right here. You can see these small dimples, right? But it's stuck, it's not going anywhere. Anywhere where you have that ugly side of the rivet coming through, it stands more proud of the surface, and therefore you have to make relief cuts. And so what we'll do is we'll take that snap-off knife that they give us in the kit, we'll score over the top of the rivet, and then we'll use a tool to go ahead and flatten out around it. So let me grab that tool and I'll show you exactly how we flatten out around that rivet. So this is the tool that we use to flatten out around that rivet. It's just an interior tool. And I got a pack of 5 different tools from, I think, Harbor Freight or Amazon or eBay or one of those. And this end just makes a really good tool to come in around these rivets and flatten out so the adhesive all the way around the product sticks and it's flat. The carpet's going to cover that, and you'll never notice that those rivet heads or the backside of that rivet is even there. But if you don't go through the time to get this stuck or adhered to the metal, what you're going to find is around those areas, if you ever have to pull the carpet off, you're going to notice that the product has started to like delaminate from the aluminum because you didn't take the time to get it nice and flat all the way around. Once air is trapped in there, any dirt or dust or moisture that gets in there won't allow the product to continue to adhere, and it starts to come away. So if you go ahead and you take the time to get in and around all those rivet heads, you're going to find that it's going to last a lot longer. Another tip is don't try to work this stuff in huge pieces. So for instance, don't try to lay this from here to here and cut all those angles. What you're going to find is that once this stuff sticks, it's stuck. It ain't coming off. And so you're better off working it in small pieces. or smaller pieces. So if you notice here, Mrs. IE 427, she started with this back piece right here. She got it cut really close to what she needed, and then she pulled off a portion of the backing, set it in place, and then she worked it all the way to the corners. And you can see here some of the residue from it's like an asphalt-based product. And as she got over to here and pushed it into the corner, she cut off the excess with a sharp knife, and then she's left with a nice edge around she's left with a nice edge around the edge of the cockpit. And then she worked this piece here. So this piece went in, and she did the same thing. This is almost a 90-degree angle from this right here. So you can also work from the front back. But she chose to leave this piece off, and I think she's going to cut this and then wrap this piece down into here, and then she'll work this floor separately. So she's got the front piece done. She's got the side engine side of the footbox and the passenger footbox done. She still needs to do the lid. So there's two pieces of the lid. There's this main piece here, and there's this small portion out here. She's got that to do. And then I think she's going to move over to the driver's side and get that completed to the same point, and then she'll work on the back and the tunnel, because I still have to get the tunnel top piece put on. So she's probably going to be out here a little later. We were on separate jobs today, and so she took the work truck one way, and I took her little HHR the other way, and I got back to the shop first and kind of came into the shop to finish up some stuff. So she'll be out here in probably a little while. We'll get a bunch of work done tonight probably, and then I'll catch you guys up maybe tomorrow. It all depends. If she's too tired when she gets back tonight, she may not want to come out to the shop, and it'll be the next night. So hang in there. It is the next day. Actually, it's much later than the next day. But Mrs. IE 427 made it out to the shop, and she spent a couple hours. She got some more of the heat and sound mat done, and then we were kind of at a standstill because I needed to get the tunnel top put in before she could continue. So she moved over to the driver's side of the car, and you can see she's got most of the floor in the driver's side. We did make the holes for the seat mounts that the customer had previously put in for his seat mounts. And then you can see she got the pieces under the door started. So with some of the scraps that she had been cutting off from the floor pieces, she got those pieces under the door done. So I guess what I'm going to tell you is, as you're going along and you're cutting your heat and sound mat, take note of those cutoff pieces and kind of give yourself an idea of where you might be able to use those, and you'll make more effective use of the heat and sound mat. So you're not throwing the stuff away. Don't just go back to the roll, cut off the next piece. Go through your scraps, see what you have. As a for instance, we're going to have a lot of small pieces when it comes to the driver's side footbox. So we're going to have a couple of pieces that are odd shapes. We're going to have this sliver that's a long triangle shape. We're going to have some pieces up in there. We're going to try to get as much heat and sound mat in these footboxes as we possibly can. If we can't get them from the bottom, we'll go in here from the top, and we'll get some in to insulate the foot boxes from the heat of the headers, because you got to remember the headers are right here. So that's what we're trying to do with the heat and sound mat. You know, I call it heat and sound mat because it's really effective for both, but we're not using it for sound. It's an open car, so all the sounds that you're going to be hearing in the car are going to be at ear level. And so since there's no other, insulation, there's no top, so there's no headliner, no insulation in the top, there's no windows. You're not worried about sound. You're really worried about keeping the heat out. And all of these products that we're using, whether it's Dynamat, Fatmat, Thermocool, whatever the brand is, they do both. They may do one better than the other, but the bottom line is they'll keep the heat out as well. Most of them are like an asphalt-based, foil-backed type of material, and they're really good at insulating the heat, or, you know, if it was air conditioning, keeping the cool in. So don't get caught up into, you know, what's the best product. I think what you need to do is think about what product is going to just work. And if you kind of look at it that way, you can go with a lesser expensive material, maybe not use the name brand. One of the reasons that we use Fat Mat is because it's really economical. Meaning you can order it from Amazon, you can order it from eBay, you can order it directly from Fat Mat and get one of their kits, and it comes with just about everything you need. This is not a paid endorsement. It's just that this is the product that we've had the best luck with over the years because it's not so expensive. And I know that you can find other products on Amazon that are less money, and if those work for you, great. My big thing with those products is most of them come pre-cut in small squares or small rectangles, and now you're fitting a bunch of pieces where most of the Fat Mat pieces, you can see, we cut them to the exact size that they are before they go in, peel the backing, roll them out, and then you're pretty much done. So some other pieces that we're gonna have that are small, we're gonna be able to use scraps, are these pieces along the back. So think of this, these pieces are all gonna be individually cut in those shapes. And so when you accumulate a bunch of scraps, by the time you cut out some bigger pieces, you know, like this back piece is probably gonna be a number of bigger pieces, but we're gonna have scraps that are generated from those cutoffs, and we'll be able to use some of those right there. I went ahead, I got the tunnel top in, and I'm kind of gonna just leave it at that. The tunnel top doesn't have a really good fit, and you're gonna have to work at it. You can even see it. You know, I've got a sheet metal brake here, which I put this in, but then even when the piece was in, what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to put self-drilling screws in, those number 8 self-drilling screws that you get with your kit, to suck these panels tight so that I could get the popper rivet next to that one installed and flat, because I don't want a lip here. If I had just installed that piece the way it came, it would have had 2 wings on the end of it because the angles just don't match. And I know a lot of you guys don't have a sheet metal brake. So what can you do in that instance if you need to get those pieces bent a little more? Well, I'm gonna show you. So go to your local home center, and for probably about $15 to $20, you can get yourself a set of duckbills. So these are used for sheet metal work. So if you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, you know, even your local Ace Hardware, you'll be able to find a pair of these. These are an old pair. These are probably 25, 30 years old. And I have them because I do sheet metal work, you know, when we have to move an air conditioning register. But I keep these in the shop because they're really handy when you have to just put a little bit more of a bend on something like that. So for $20, you can save yourself, you know, taking it down to a sheet metal shop and having them bend it. You can take these and just gently ease the edge a little bit more. So do a section at a time. So start at the back, do the whole length of the duckbills, move it down a little bit, do a little more, and so on down. What you don't want to do is overbend it. Because if you overbend 6061 and you have to bend it back the other way, it's going to fracture, it's going to crack. And that's one of the downsides to 6061 aluminum. I don't know that I've ever said this or told this story, but about 4 years ago, during COVID, we had to change the material that we use to make our drop boxes and our panels here at the shop because 6061 aluminum became so hard to find locally that I had to switch. I had to go to 5052, which is a softer alloy. Now, for the parts that we make, it makes no difference whatsoever as far as the rigidity of the pieces, because every piece that we make, like for the drop box, has a break in it. So it has a 90-degree bend, which really stiffens up the piece. So it didn't affect any of the stuff that we're making, any of the parts that we're making. But for like a large panel, like you find inside the car here, if there is no structure behind it, the part will tin can. It'll pop in different weather conditions. So if it's cold or it's hot, you'll hear a panel pop. And some of that has to do with how well you fasten it, whether you use silicone to adhere it and what have you. But regardless, some of the panels will do that just because there's a lot of room in between where one piece of chassis is to the other, and there's an area that can expand and contract, and that's when they pop. The heat and sound mat does a good job of eliminating that. What I'm getting at is that when you bend this tunnel to make it fit, try not to overbend it. Bend it a little at a time until you get the fit you need, and place it back in the car. And then if you need to bend it a little more, then bend it a little more. But don't try to bend it all at once and then have to bend it back, because then what you'll find is it's gonna crack right at the corners. It's gonna crack right back here, probably for, a ½ inch to an inch. And it'll do the same thing on this side. That's gonna be where it's the weakest. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to fit some of these panels. Most of the other panels on the car, especially like in the foot box, you're dealing with multiple panels, and so you can move one panel out and one panel in order to make the seams where they come together a little bit tighter. But in a situation like this where you're putting the panel right over the top of structure, out over the chassis, if the piece isn't bent to the proper spot, it makes it really hard to get that thing set in. Now, I know I've had guys tell me this in the past. Well, you're going to cover it all with heat and sound mat and carpet. Yes, we are. However, in a situation like this, when this piece is sticking out, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. It's going to transfer through the heat and sound mat, and it's going to transfer through the carpeting. And so, especially since this carpet is all one piece, it comes up, over, and back down on the other side. So you can see that if that piece isn't fit and it's not flush and tight, it's going to transfer through the heat and sound mat. It's going to transfer through the carpeting. So make sure that this panel, when it goes in, is to your liking before you put any heat and sound mat on. And I think you'll be much happier in the end when you get to this stage where you're putting heat and sound mat in, and then later when you're putting the carpet in. Now, if you notice, both the side panels are off the car along with the dash. So we've got this panel right here for the driver's side foot box off of the car. And that makes it so much easier to get in there to do your heat and sound mat and your carpeting. When you get to the point of carpeting, you can go ahead and put your heat and sound mat and your carpeting on this panel before it ever gets installed, so that once it gets put in place, you're done. The other thing is, having the dash out gives you much more room in order to get in and get your heat and sound mat on the lower firewall. And inside the foot box is down here when you're working from the door opening versus through the side of the foot box. So make your dash 100% removable, and don't put your dash in for the final time until you're ready to set the finished body on the car. If you've got to start and move the car and all that kind of stuff, it's not that big of a deal to put the dash in place, plug the connectors in. You can hold the dash in with some Clecos temporarily, and then if you're not to the point where you're carpeting yet, then you can pull the dash back out. You can get your heat and sound mat and your carpeting in and not have to worry about having the dash in your way. So I think that's going to do it. I've got a bunch of other videos on YouTube and Rumble about heat and sound mat. And we'll check in, because we're going to continue doing the heat and sound mat as kind of fill-in work on this car while we're working on other things. But I want to move on to getting the throttle linkage all squared away. I've just got a couple of other little things to do so that we can get this car to first start. And so the heat and sound mat will continue, but we're going to concentrate the videos on some other stuff so that we just don't get bogged down with video after video of us doing heat and sound mat. So If you guys are enjoying the content here, as always, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.